What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. You know, League of Legends playtesting really is a lot more complex, a lot more technical and intricate than we think, and it's probably by far the most important part of developing and designing just everything in League of Legends. But when it comes to trying to iron out bugs and kinks and all sorts of stuff, it's really difficult to manually find everything possible and account for situations. And so yes, and although sure sometimes the bugs don't get found and they still make it into the game, it is really important to understand that for every bug that makes it into League of Legends, there's probably easily, 50 if not 100 or more bugs that actually get fixed before the content gets released, and we figured it'd be really cool to take a look at some of the tools that Riot uses to test their game and develop their content, and hopefully we'll get maybe some insight into a potential sandbox mode in the future in the process. And if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely hit that like button and let's begin. So one thing that a lot of people might not appreciate is really just the sheer volume of playtesting that you need to do to actually create statistically significant results. Riot releases new changes to the game every 2 weeks in their patches, and any single one of those changes could have unintended effects on the game. In fact, we know that the game sees over 100 changes to code and content pretty much every single game, and all of those changes need to be tested over and over again, not only for balance purposes, but as well to make sure that they're not going to introduce any new bugs into the system. And with that many changes to the game code every day, it's not even close to being possible for humans to be able to get all of the required testing done. You would need such an unreasonable, outrageously large team that would just be so impossible to manage. And as a result, the only solution to make sure that bugs are caught before they go live is to run automated tests, to find them as quickly as possible, and with automation, they can run more tests and run them way faster, record results better, and overall just streamline the process. And even automated systems have a problem though. Games still take a really long time to play out. You could have a couple thousand computers running games of League of Legends automatically, but you'd still only get a very limited number of usable results from those tests, And of course, the solution to that problem was to use the internal sandbox mode, some kind of like test chamber where the usual game rules kind of just don't apply and you have full control over what happens. You can spawn champions, you could give a character infinite mana, you could give them infinite gold, you could give them 6 items, really just anything you could think of, honestly. Say you changed Syndra's ultimate, you wanted to test it out on different champions in the game. Usually you'd have to farm up to level 6, use the ultimate on a bunch of different champions, waiting on the cooldown each time, but with a more proper sandbox mode, you could just spawn Syndra into the game, spawn a ton of different champions, instantly make her level 6, give her 100% cooldown reduction, give her infinite gold, and then just try that ultimate out on everyone in just a complete fraction of the time. And Riot commented actually that they run about 100,000 test cases that are automated every day, which is really actually an insane number to think about. If they do that every day for a year, that's over 35 million automated playtests of changes to the game that are actually run, and really just, those are all completed automatically. And so the way the test system works for them is using something that they call continuous integration, which means all of the developers can sort of like check in new codes or new changes, and then the automated system runs the sandbox mode to test those specific changes and reports back within an hour or so. And so that way the developers get really quick results from their changes, from their playtests, which means that bugs and errors not only get found a lot more quickly, but bugs discovered by the automated test runs actually get resolved a lot faster than the average sort of bug. 8 times faster is the number that they gave. The really cool thing about their infrastructure is that if Riot are having a particular, maybe like a busy day for testing newer changes, they can kind of scale it up by adding more executors to the test farm, meaning the automated playtests will also fire even quicker. Maybe it's a little bit hard to imagine what automated playtests actually look like, so we found something pretty interesting, which is video footage of the automated tests actually happening. So we're going to play the footage in the background, and what you're watching right now, the footage shows an automated test being run of Kog'Maw. And the system's testing out multiple things a lot faster than just an average human would be able to do if you gave that kind of testing to an actual person. You can see it kill Kog'Maw test as passive, gives him targets to attack with his autos, test his abilities, and it can even rapidly level him up so he can test those abilities multiple times to make sure the damage dealt, the cooldowns are all accurate, all checking out, that kind of stuff. Outside of recorded bits of footage for things like champion spotlights, this is really one of the only insights into Riot's internal sandbox mode that we've ever seen, really. And it does point out a ton of features that you'd expect if we actually gained access to a sandbox mode. For example, you can teleport to wherever on the map, spawn champions to attack, give yourself infinite mana, 100% cooldown, and just all sorts of changes to make testing, make practicing the game easier. From champion spotlights, we also know that Riot can force champions to run along a path so that they can show the effects of crowd control abilities of skill shots, and it's also not limited to champions either. Any game units such as minions, dragons, etc. can be spawned and positioned wherever they need to be for the purposes of demonstrating a newer champion when they create those spotlights. So a lot of players kind of might wonder why Riot haven't released a sandbox mode for players to use. Honestly, they pretty clearly have a working version internally, and it's a really big part of how they're able to keep League updated and run all these playtests, and for the most part keep League relatively bug-free in terms of the significant bugs at least. And a big reason for that is honestly because the way it's set up, the internal sandbox mode that they have would be fairly unusable for the average player. Riot developers can definitely run the sandbox, issue commands directly to the system to make it do certain actions and stuff, and the automated system as well is able to do kind of the same thing so that it can run actions a lot faster and more accurately, but it's probably really complicated. Most players wouldn't be able to tell the sandbox mode to do the same tasks, and Riot would probably end up with a lot of bad feedback on it because it's not really designed to be used by the average gamer, and as a result, the sandbox mode might actually create a lot of problems or bugs with the way that it's developed, or at least with the way that it is now if they just released it to the public. Hopefully Riot will definitely release a sandbox mode one day, but it would be a lot different. They would need to give it like a proper user interface with like a bunch of buttons that players can push to accomplish those tasks, or maybe some sort of like console commands or something like that. Something that allows players to do things within the sandbox mode without really needing to understand how the code works or all the complex sort of things, the inputs that they would need to use to actually make the sandbox mode do things. It would definitely need to be a lot more polished that way. Players would need to be able to fairly easily change their champion, change stats, and all that sorts of stuff. But I mean, as a content creator, I would definitely really like to see a sandbox mode come in the future, and I know it's something that a lot of people probably want. It's kind of a controversial topic for why they haven't released it, but as far as I know, the sandbox mode is something that Riot is actually kind of working on developing right now. It seems like the development team they have for their sandbox mode isn't necessarily that large, so it might come pretty slow, and it looks like they're still kind of figuring out the right angle and the right sort of design that they want to go with it. Hopefully though, they can find a version that they are comfortable releasing for the casual player. Maybe after some improvements, a little bit of polish, it's something that we can get for the public. I know for a fact that I would definitely love to make videos with it, so here's to the future, I guess. Either way, this was maybe a little bit of a different video, but you guys know I'm all about that behind the scenes Riot stuff, so it's really cool to take a look at what maybe their playtesting looks like in the background and take a look at what their internal sandbox looks like and what we could maybe expect to see from a sandbox mode one day. Coming soon TM. Anyway, it looks like that's gonna be for me. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.